Oh, way to go.
I was telling people this, reaping and sowing, people just think, well, I reap what I sow, but people want to reap one thing and then sow another thing, and it doesn't work that way. Ask a farmer, he doesn't plant a watermelon and get squash.
He's dyslexic. It should be sow one thing, reap another.
Thank you. Let's talk about dyslexia, because you have a child that is dyslexic.
I just love dyslexias.
Yeah,
I raised a child, and, you know, when he was 5, he said, Mum, how come what we see is so big and our eyes are so little? I thought, ooh, that's a different brain. Mum, where does the light go when we turn the switch off? This boy had questions that no kid has ever asked me, and he could fix anything. If my washing machine broke down, he could just fix it. And he could just build things, and I just thought that's what boys do.
Right.
But a man took me aside one day and he said, no, Barbara, there's something different about that kid.
Was it the gentleman that I met inside?
No, that's my grandson.
Was that his son?
No.
Got it.
That's my eldest daughter who had the earache. That's her son.
So dyslexia to you was at first like it was complicated. Same with me and my family.
Well,
we didn't.
It was. I remember Peter just didn't know colours. And all my kids knew colours at 4. And I remember one day we decided to just concentrate on yellow all day. Yellow lemon, yellow this, yellow that. And at the end of the day we picked up a lemon and we said, okay, tell Dad what colour this is. And he went, green.
Wow.
Dude, this is why I was in resource class.
And playing I Spy.
Oh.
I spy something beginning with T, and all the kids are trying everything, and we'd say, what is it? He'd go, road.
Poor kid, I know exactly what that feels like.
But you know that I am so glad that he was homeschooled, because I could see his value. I could see this kid's diligence is his second name. So at 15, he does a spelling test. He's so diligent in his schoolwork, and 80% is wrong. And he'd come and say, how'd I go, Mum? And I'd say, oh, not too bad, Pete. How can I tell him? He's just worked so hard at this spelling test. So what I did was I put him into tiling.
Thailand?
Tiling.
I was like, geez, man.
No, I kept him.
Go to the other country, come back when you learn.
No, it became, because he could so good with his hands, but you could get into tiling or bricklaying without any qualifications.
Yeah.
And I thought tiling's got a bit of finesse. Well, he was offered 4 apprenticeships after 4 months because he's so brilliant with his hands, and he became Brisbane's top tiler. This is after a few years. He just excelled. I knew he would excel, but it was interesting. He did carpentry then, and he's about 18, and I said, how are you going, Pete? This is because 2 years in school. He said, oh, took me a while to get it, but I finally got it. And I'd say, are you the smartest kid in the class? He'd say, no, there's another kid, but he needs a calculator. So I knew that he would excel because he was so diligent. And eventually, at the age of 19, I read a book called The Gift of Dyslexia. And I thought someone had studied Peter and written a book about him.
Yeah.
And that's where I discovered that dyslexias never see letters. They only see pictures, but they actually see in dimensions. That's why their minds are brilliant. So they're not the dunce of the class, they're actually the genius of the class because they see everything in dimension. So when Peter began to surf, he just stood up and surfed. You can't do that. So they're particularly good at memory, they're particularly good at music, they're particularly good at memory. Because I said to him once, Peter, how come you can read? Because you can't get a dyslexic to sound out words because they see dimensional pictures. He said, oh, I've just memorised every word, the shape of the word.
Wow.
I never actually said this when I was when I first started acting. My biggest fear was like reading in front of people, because when I was a kid, like even though like I'm a grown man, but when I read in front of people, it just haunts me from the feeling that I had when I was a child. And one day I asked the director, I said, hey, can I have the script before we go into the table read, because we had to read in front of people. and they thought I was the most brilliant reader because I was acting while I was reading. I was looking down, but I was actually pretending because the night before I memorized the script. So I was pretending like I was reading, and I was being so theatrical, and they were just like, "You're an amazing reader." So for a while, I was kind of like lying because I never once. In fact, one girl almost caught me because they already flipped their pages, and I'm looking down at the wrong page reading, and she flipped my page for me and looked at me, and so she caught on. But like, yeah, it's so funny you bringing all this up because when I was younger, I knew that I was very different from everybody. But I always had faith in God because my mom, and I think that's okay, and I really hope that a mother out there is listening. If you're dealing with a child that's like lacking in the moment, and your teachers are giving you a lot of fear, and God forbid the doctors are trying to put stuff in them, and they're just trying to guide your kid, I really would first pray and get your wisdom from God on where your first step with your child should be. Because my mom did that with me, and I think I wouldn't be where I was if she didn't put faith in me.
Yeah.
And that, to me, was like a huge cemented foundation for me, that any hurdle that I had, I trusted on the Lord, and I was able to excel. I was able to tell that mountain, get up and go this way.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of the way you're outspoken with the Lord, because it's I love that I send my mother your notes of you on the whiteboard and explaining things, but it fills my heart more with joy when I see a godly, God-fearing woman leading other households to be in this type of mindset, because I do believe that Jesus is the healer of all healing, and he put that wisdom in you, and now you're putting that wisdom. You're a disciple in your own field.
1,000,000%.
Yeah,
Well, I have to tell you one experience with Peter where God gave me wisdom. He's 9. He knows all his letters, his words, and I'm with James doing long division. James about 8 years old. It's pretty intense. And Pete says, "Mum, what's this word?" And I say to James, "Just give me a minute." So I go over and look at the word. It's the. I've told him the 10,000 times. And so my emotions are going, oh. And my emotions are going, when is this kid going to get it? I had to leave long division for the. But of course, God's speaking to my mind saying, and how's he going to feel if you say that? I didn't have to tell the other kids this many times. How's he going to say how's he going to feel if you say that? So you see, I'd given my heart to God, and God was faithfully speaking, holding me back. My emotions are strong. And I knew what God was saying to me was all true, because this kid was my best worker, this kid. So I breathed deeply and said, Peter, and walked away. And Peter goes, "Oh," as if I've never told him.
Can I ask you, how was he after that? Did he learn the word "the" then?
No.
But it's incredible because you didn't actually learn what dyslexia was until he was 19.
No.
Wow.
This
So
is,
you just.
So when
So you thought he was, no disrespect to him, did you think he was mentally challenged? Because that's
No.
what they thought with me.
No, because he was so brilliant. Like, how come our eyes are so little and what we see is so big? How do you answer that? So I knew he was a thinker. And so when I read about it, I realised why he didn't know there's no picture for the. There's no picture. There's a picture for ball, there's a picture for flower, but there's no picture for the. So what in this book they said, when you're teaching dyslexics you put the with the ball, the rose, and by association
They'll know what that is.
you can teach them that. So that, and I'm so glad he was my 5th child, not my first child. I thought I knew everything with my first 4, then Peter hit.
Peter was actually supposed to be the second one. God's like, actually, just let me put this guy back here. Did you purposely name them after the disciples?
No.
They just came out, and you're like,
Well,
Peter, James,
they were names
Simon.
I loved, and Peter was his father's name.
Got it.
So I did that for his father, but I also really, really liked Peter. But let's fast forward now. Peter's, whatever he touches, he does very well. But 2021, I said to Peter, how do you get your equipment, you know, for tiling and building, if you can't go into Bunnings, Bunnings is this great big store that sells stuff that builders use. I said, how do you get in there if you can't get in unless you wear a mask? He says, I just walk in as if I own the place. And he's built big, he's muscly. He just marches in.
They're like, sir, do you not see the sign? It says mask. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. I didn't see that. I didn't even read it. What's the? Do you know what the is?
The.
So interesting because it's just, when you're explaining it, it's just like Georgie, like you're saying he picked up surfing and he was able to just do it. Like Georgie can pick up things so quickly, like sports he's really good at. He did this kickball tournament. And had you even ever played kickball before?
Well, I was like in 6th grade.
But he won the tournament for them, and he's playing with like athletes. You know, like it's incredible.
And
so.
you know what it is. And
Thanks for that, by the way.
Forgive me if I'm wrong. Dyslexics are already using this different dimension to plan the kick, to plan the move, to plan the. They've planned it all in their mind before they do it, and that's why they execute it so well.
Oh yeah, he's always 9 steps ahead.
It's so weird that you're saying. I feel like you're just speaking into my heart. Reed was the first one. That's Reed right there. He was the first one to ever tell me. He goes, "I've never met a man who reflects as much as you." And the reason I reflect is because I see patterns. So when I don't necessarily see the future, but I see the options of where it could go.
Yeah, that's the dimensions.
Yeah.